Now we go.
Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to United States Sports Academy and our weekly sports talk program. Today, I'm fortunate to have with me Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our Chair of Sports Coaching, and Dr. Fred Cromartie, our Director of Doctoral Studies. And producing our show this morning is Ms. Sarah Weber, one of our wonderful graduate teaching assistants, who is an expert in public relations. So she's going to make sure that next week we have, 50,000 viewers for the show?
No, it's 175,000.
175,000. Anyway, we're going to talk this morning about one of the great college football all-star games that's here in Mobile this week.
Well, the only college all-star game when you look at it from a historical perspective.
Yeah. The Senior Bowl is now sponsored by Reese's, so everywhere you look, you see Reese's peanut butter cups, which can't be a bad thing. And
If you get a chance to go to the game, they're going to be handing them out, so get a pocket full.
without a doubt, the greatest candy in the history of candy. But they're now the sponsors. This is the 67th annual Senior Bowl. Been going on every year since 1950. We were just talking earlier when we were young, there were several college all-star games. So there was one in Montgomery called the Blue-Gray Game. There was one in Miami called the North-South Shrine Game. There was one in California called the East-West Shrine Game.
Yep.
But the Senior Bowl has always been the best of the college all-star games for the simple reason that those other games were much earlier. For example, the Blue-Gray Game is on Christmas Day. So if your school is going to a bowl game, you couldn't play in the Blue-Gray Game. Same thing with the East-West and North-South Shrine Games. If you're in one of them lesser bowls that went like the 22nd of December, you could play. But if you're a good, most of the players from those games weren't from the great teams.
You actually had the college all-star game for a good number of years until 1976 when college stopped, where remember the college all-stars would be selected and they'd play against the Super Bowl champion of the previous year.
Yeah, they did that during preseason.
Yeah.
For the following.
But it was still a showcase, all-star type contest.
Well, what's interesting when you look at since 1950, there's been over 5,000 players from 269 different colleges and universities have played in the Senior Bowl. And you might, having said what we said about the early days and all the schools coming to the Senior Bowl, you might think that the kind of players that go to college all-star games aren't from the power programs. Well, let me give you the top 5 teams that have sent players to the Senior Bowl, and tell me if you've ever heard of any of the schools as a college football from a college football perspective. Alabama is first with 229. Auburn second with 195. LSU's third with 110 players. Penn State's fourth with 108, and Oklahoma's fifth with 105. So
I think the SEC has definitely got its footprint on the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and in all honesty, part of that is geography.
Yeah, true, but
we got the local folks here. One of the things I find fascinating is if you take a look at the coaches who have coached in the Senior Bowl. I'm just going to name a few of them: Paul Brown, Wee Eubank, Tom Landry, Otto Graham, Hank Stram, Don Shula, Bud Grant, Bill Walsh, Mike Ditka, Bill Belichick, Tony Dungy, John Gruden, George Seifert, Bill Cowher, Mike Holmgren, and Mike Shanahan. Now, that's just a handful of coaches. The thing about those folks is that every single one of those coaches we just named has either won a Super Bowl or is in the Football Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Paul Brown never won a Super Bowl because he was coaching in the 50s, but I guess if you have a team named after you, you're pretty important. I don't think any list of all-time top 5 coaches that doesn't include Paul Brown, you should probably dismiss that as irrelevant. So Brett went to the South practice yesterday at Fairfield High School. What'd you think?
There's some very good talent. I was impressed with the young man from Baylor, just size, strength, speed. I believe his last name is Oakman. Defensive end, wears number 2. His trademark is to always tuck the shirt under the shoulder pads and show his 6-pack. But
8-pack.
Yeah, but he was very impressive. The other fascinating thing was, Nick Saban showed up, and of course all the Alabama fans went crazy, and I had no idea why they were going crazy until he walked right across in front of me about 50-yard line. I don't know if he was on the east or the west side. I can't remember. Saw Rod Woodson, saw a lot of Jim Haslett that used to coach the New Orleans Saints, and John Harbaugh, which kind of a family friend. He didn't grow up in the same hometown as me, but his father did. So I got to talk to John a little bit. And one thing that he was saying is the Senior Bowl has always been the game that has the most talented players, and that's why they all show up here.
Right.
And also, I think what you guys were saying earlier about the other All-Star games being early, on Christmas and whatnot, it also affected the NFL scouts and coaches and people being able to come to see those other games.
Yeah, one of the things to notice when I read that list of coaches is that the Senior Bowl players are coached by NFL coaching staffs. This year, the North is coached by the Dallas Cowboys, Jason Garrett and his staff, and the South is being coached by the Jacksonville Jaguars, Gus Bradley and his staff. And, all these other names that we just read were all NFL coaching legends. Another thing that's interesting about the Senior Bowl, talk about the NFL connection, is they play by NFL rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really, for a lot of these folks, it's their first NFL game.
With their feet wet. The other thing is,
But it also goes to showcase over the years the deep, strong connection that the Senior Bowl has to the NFL. If you recall, there some years back, there was a lot of discrepancy saying that Lad People Stadium needed to be updated. If they didn't do it, then they were going to pull out. Tampa Bay had put in the city of Tampa, had put in a bid to get them to move there, and ultimately, folks here decided that Lad People Stadium did need some upgrades. And that they made the necessary upgrades, and the NFL continued to stay here and actually some of the back behind the fodder talk and everything said that the NFL really never wanted to leave Mobile. They like coming down here. They like the fact that the majority of the time it is great weather, conducive for the practicing. They're not so much concerned about the game and that. They want to get out there. They want to see what the talent is out there on the field and that, which is brings up another thing. Yesterday was what they call, the meat show. That's where all the athletes get up and the weigh in, and they test the arm, span, hand size, all that good stuff. And those are some of the very, very interesting things that transpire, because one of the things that came out of it yesterday was the size of Jay Coker, the quarterback of the University of Alabama. In the program at University of Alabama all year long, they listed him as between 6'3" and 6'4". Well, it turns out the kid's 6'5" and a half, and folks are like, wait a minute now, is that a red flag for a lot of teams and that? And a lot of the, some of the coaches said yesterday, no, it's not a red flag. You got to take a look. Teams are out there actually looking for kids that are Cam Newton size, 6'5", 245, and that. Now the backlash is that you've got a quarterback who is there who's 5'11", something like that, and they're saying, wait a minute, 5'11", 185 is not going to get it anymore. They're looking for that, NFL prototypical type quarterback that can get in there and mix it up, and he can take a little bit of punishment. I mean,
Russell Wilson's okay.
He's done okay, but in the analysis yesterday that was talked about is Russell Wilson is one of those quarterbacks that takes very few direct on shots. The kid knows how to maneuver it where it's an offshoot, it's sort of a glancing blowing at. He's not going to take you dead on.
Dr. Cromartie mentioned something very important there, and that's how the coaches view practice as so much more important than the game.
Yes.
Other than the Cowboys and the Jaguars, a lot of these coaching staffs won't even stay for the game.
No,
They'll just watch practice for 3 days, and then they'll go home and do the things they need to do, because they can see, you can in practice you can watch a quarterback throw the ball 50 times in a row and get a better feel than you actually can from the game. Speaking of quarterbacks, this year they had 8 quarterbacks. 8 quarterbacks. Yeah. First time they've ever had 8. 2 years ago, they had 7, and 6 of them got drafted, which was a record. The 7 quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl and the 6 getting drafted was a record. This year, they got 8, and you talk about the NFL connection. Phil Savage, who's the executive director, was formerly the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. So you've got all kinds of NFL connections there. So what do you think about having 8 quarterbacks for the game?
It has nothing to do with the game itself. It has everything to do with being able to give them an opportunity to show exactly what they can do on the practice field. And that's what it is.
And if you look at the roster, Braxton Miller's also in the game. and
Yeah,
not as a quarterback.
right.
And they did that last year with the guy from Auburn. What the hell was his name?
Marshall.
Yeah, Nick
Yeah,
Marshall.
Nick Marshall.
Nick Marshall. They tried him out defensive back, and
Yeah.
he did pretty well. Just some fun numbers to throw out there. You know, the Senior Bowl is Saturday and the Pro Bowl is Sunday. Last year there were 23 Senior Bowl alumni in the Pro Bowl.
Mhm.
So this year it'll probably be something similar. A few fun numbers to kick around. 169 first-round draft picks in the last 15 years that played in the Senior Bowl. 84 players were drafted in last year's draft. 31 of the 32 teams last year selected at least one Senior Bowl player. So only one team did not. And 4 teams drafted 5 Senior Bowl players.
But the one team that did not, they didn't have a first round draft.
Right.
Had they had one, they'd have drafted one.
I'm interested to see the guy from North Dakota State, the quarterback.
You know what? They said that he looked pretty good yesterday. So
Well, I'm going to go see him today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to
Spoken.
through some connections that Brett has. We all have credentials for practices and the game, so we get to
everybody don't want that.
we get to
non-transferable.
Yeah, one of the things Phil Savage was talking about TV the other night with 8 quarterbacks is it makes the logistics pretty simple. Everybody plays a quarter.
Well, he's being honest with people. You invite 8 quarterbacks down there because it is a quarterback-driven league.
Mhm.
It's that simple. And now, you know, they give them an opportunity to demonstrate clearly, you know, not only your physical prowess and your ability to throw the ball or run the ball, but they want to see whether or not you can get up under the center. That's one of the biggest problems. You have to make that transition from the college game, you know, from playing, you know, back and the spread offense style and that. And once you get up underneath that quarterback, they got to see what you can do. And that's what a lot of those kids, Dak Prescott was on the radio this morning. He was saying that's what he has been working on the most is taking snaps from underneath the center. Because he's been in the spread offense his whole entire collegiate career. And it even stemmed back to his high school days. He was in a spread offense there.
Well, a lot of high schools are going towards the you know, for example, Auburn. If you go to Auburn High School, if you have a coaching change at Auburn University, the style of football they play at Auburn High School changes because
It's sort of a feeder system. Yeah.
One thing we didn't mention, there are 42 Senior Bowl alumni in the National Football League Hall of Fame. Just a couple of them, I'll throw out some names: Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Dawson, Mean Joe Green, Franco Harris, Dan Marino, Joe Namath, and Walter Payton.
Bum Smith, got to go a little further back.
A little further back. You know, for the people who are watching out there that don't live locally, one of the cool things this year is there's actually 2 players from Mobile High School. So Jake Coker, who went to St. Paul's. If you remember the run that A.J. McCarron had at Alabama, and then this year in the playoffs with the Cincinnati Bengals, Jake Coker actually went to the same high school. He backed up A.J. McCarron his first year in high school, and then he went to Florida State and backed up Jameis Winston,
Yes.
and then he transferred to Alabama. And last year he backed up the kid Blake, and this year he finally got his chance and won a national championship.
Yeah.
So a pretty good story. But yeah, like you said, he was bigger
Yeah.
than people thought they were, and that's going to turn out to do well for him. The other kid is a wide receiver named KJ May, who went to Murphy High School, and one of our great faculty members here, Brandon Sprouty, his wife is the track coach at Murphy High School. So there's that connection there. They actually KJ May went from Minnesota, and he's playing for the South. So I guess the folks at the Senior Bowl weren't geography majors.
No, they wanted him to play there so that he could sign autographs yesterday.
Yeah,
there.
they move players around too. They're one of their goals is to make the teams even.
Yeah.
As far as talent goes, but yeah, like Sarah said, they wanted him to be able to sign autographs yesterday with the South team. So let's, you know, it doesn't make any sense to make predictions of who's gonna win in a game like this. But what are you looking forward to? So we're all going to the game. All 4 of us are going to the game Saturday. What do you hope to see? What's the one thing you hope to see at the football game?
It's not necessarily what I want to see because you're pretty much going to get to see all of them. What I think, what I hope transpires is that there's no serious injuries for any of those kids that are seeking to, get an opportunity with at the next level with another team. That's the one thing. Everybody come out of there healthy, get a chance to play, do whatever it is that they can to demonstrate to another team that, hey, it's worth taking a chance. Because that's what it is. It's a crapshoot. No matter what anybody says, there are no guarantees that anybody is going to be a prolific player at the next level. So I let's hope everyone enjoys themselves, has a great game, and comes out of it healthy.
Well, I haven't played in some all-star games as an athlete. You want them to just go out there. You want them to showcase their talent and show them how fun it really is. And, maybe do some things that they weren't able to do on their specific team during the college year or throughout the course of their career.
And they'll get a chance to do some of that,
Right.
Based on how they practice that. That's what the coaches are out there looking for.
Well,
They want to do some of those
That's one
things.
point I was going to make. When I was out there yesterday, one of the common things you heard from the coaching staff was you need to go hard on every play,
Yeah.
especially the quarterback. When you got 8 quarterbacks and you're doing 4 at a time, you're only going to get so many reps.
Mhm.
And we want to see what you have to do every rep.
I
So you
think,
can't take one off.
like you having played in all-star games, I think the coolest thing for the players is getting a chance to meet players from other parts of the country. That they, like when Auburn and Alabama played, half the guys either played with each other or against each other in high school. Now you get the chance to meet people from Washington State and all of it. Anyway, 1:30 Central Time this Saturday on ESPN and the NFL Network. And
You guys both sound like the guy in Napoleon Dynamite. If they'd only put you two in the game, you'd won the state championship.
there's
Not at all.
they keep score, but there's really nobody really cares about who wins and loses.
That's true.
It's all
That's
about showcasing the talent.
Right.
And I think Phil Savage has done a great job of
Bringing it
making
in.
sure that the Senior Bowl brings in great talent.
Let's see if one of those players tomorrow or Saturday's game steps up, scores a touchdown, and gives the ball to a kid.
Yeah.
Well, they had
Or-
the fan experience on Friday.
Anyway, enjoy the game this Saturday. We'll be here next Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Unless
Look for us on the sidelines.
we'll all be there waving. Unless something super that we just have to talk about comes up in the next 7 days, we're going to do a Super Bowl preview next Wednesday. But then again, you never know what's going to happen. One week we had a show planned, and the baseball commissioner announced that Pete Rose was going to stay banned, so we changed our show to talk about Pete Rose. But enjoy the Senior Bowl. Hope the players from your favorite college do well. And I'll echo what Dr. Cromartie said. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. So we'll see you next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time for our weekly edition of Sports Talk. Have a great week in sports.